is the school of hot takes.
All right, everyone, welcome back. This is a new season, a new year. We are the School of Hot Takes. We have myself, Mitch, and Dylan, and a special guest tonight, Brendan. We are here to discuss some off-season football and some future football predictions, what we think is going to happen this season. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And yeah, how we doing, gents? How do we think the end of season and off season has been wrapping up so far? Any like initial reactions, I guess?
Go ahead, Brendan.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing too surprising. I think in free agency after the draft, you kind of figure out who people are. Um, it's kind of what the draft is. It's all secrets are loose. You know what teams are thinking. You know what they want. You know who they want to be.
Mhm.
Uh, so looking at teams, I mean, teams' problems were clear and obvious. I think some teams addressed it. I think some teams did a very poor job at addressing what they needed.
Right. How are you doing? Any initial reactions?
Um, Not really. Yeah, I think I agree with Brendan there. I basically, it's still early on in the summer. Kind of just want to see where teams go from here. It's more so what I'm excited about.
Hmm.
How
Yeah, I
about
think
yourself?
definitely teams building on their training camp experiences this offseason will tell us a lot more. But we just wanted to sort of get a look at what we're seeing so far and see if we can have any solid predictions and what we're feeling this offseason already. So, first offseason news I wanted to bring up was the obviously recent news of Aaron Rodgers signing with the Steelers. And I know myself and Dylan are Steelers fans, so I'm interested to see what you feel on this, Brendan. But me personally, I think this is a bad move from the Steelers. I was really personally hoping the Steelers would finish like, you know, 3-14
Yeah.
and sign a really good rookie quarterback next year. From what I've been hearing, it's somewhat of a more stacked rookie class for quarterbacks. So I think there's a lot of talent in there, even if we don't, finish 3-14 or have the top five pick or anything. But um, I think the Steelers brought in Aaron Rodgers to finish above 500 and sneak into the playoffs again and lose in the first round again. Like, I think it was just a bad overall pick from my perspective. So, I don't know what you two think, but for me, this is somewhat of a bad signing if I had to say so myself. So, how about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Dylan go first. I'll let the fans go first, and then I'll round it up.
um, yeah, I'm pretty much on board with what you said, Mitch. I mean, I think what kind of honestly sucks about it is they've been talking about it for what months now that he was going to kind of come to us. I think I just saw yesterday it came out that unfortunately that was our third choice.
Hmm.
First, I saw our first choice was to re-sign Justin. Didn't go as planned. Number two, I saw they tried to trade for Matt Stafford, which is fire. I'm glad. That's
I would
something
have been
really
happy with
cool.
that.
Yeah, exactly. That's for the Steelers. That's huge. That's not something they usually dabble with. He is getting a little older, but I'll take him a million times over Aaron Rodgers.
Hmm.
And yeah, so we got our third choice, which means we'll likely not have a great season, and that's honestly okay with me.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of the move. I don't mind it, and when I say like I don't mind it, is I understand what they're trying to do. Is that if you run out of the tunnel week one, led by Mason Rudolph, it's kind of disrespectful to your veterans who have been banging the drum that we want to compete. Um, if you do that with Mason Rudolph, T.J. Watt almost definitely wants to leave.
Hmm.
Cam Hayward feels disrespected. I think that the Steelers did a lot of good things in the draft. I mean, they got Derek Harmon. I loved that pick.
Right.
The one thing with the Steelers is that they went into Baltimore for the wild card round of the playoff against the Steelers or against the Ravens, knowing that the Ravens were just going to run. That was the game plan option: run, run,
Hmm.
run, and the Steelers couldn't do anything about it. Um, So I think this move is it's a 1 year deal. It's to keep the house happy. Um, we'll see if it works out. I mean, it's a good team. They have one of the
It's
best defenses in the league. If Aaron Rodgers can be even 25% of what he was his MVP years with the Packers, I mean, who knows? You,
yeah,
you
I
might make it past the first round.
I understand the point of bringing in, like a veteran to help sign the TJ Watts and keep our, more veteran players happy and satisfied, with some sort of a winning record and everything and have some sort of a chance for the playoffs. But I'm almost in that mindset as a fan, at least, of like, let's start over and rebuild. And I was hoping like these more veterans on the team would be fine with a Mason Rudolph who somewhat knows the playbook and can come in and lead the team. Like he started a few years ago and got what, five-ish wins or something like that when he had to come in. So I mean, he at least knows the playbook and can perform relatively decent, I guess. Not that he's going to have, a winning record or, like Sam Darnold did last season, but Um, I'd love to see them almost sort of have a fresh start and go from there. So for this signing, I mean, yeah, it'd be great if we can, do really well and finish top couple teams of the AFC, like top three or whatever, but I just don't see it realistically happening. So I feel like it's almost a setback if we're going to finish as, the seventh seed in the playoffs and go from there again and have what, the 24th pick in the draft again. Like, it doesn't really help us in the long run again. Like it's just a repeat cycle.
Sure. I don't think the Steelers wanted to do it, right?
No.
I think they were pressured to do it. And I
Hmm.
think if you go for a full reset, you go for a full reset.
Right.
You lose everything. And that's a shame. I mean, you already saw kind of the brute force of unhappiness with Pickens leaving. He
Hmm.
demands a trade. They send him to his ass to the rookie head coach Schottenheimer, and now he's Jerry Jones's problem. I mean, Pickens was showing up an hour before game starts. It almost felt like the culture didn't resonate with George Pickens.
Right.
Hopefully, it's something they can kind of reset with, and they have a good football team. I mean, another problem on offense with the Steelers was that Russell Wilson really only had enough time to look through his first read. And if it
Hmm.
wasn't there, it was an emergency dump down to Najee or Fryermuth. Um, so maybe getting that veteran play, maybe it helps, but you're right. I mean, there's a very, very good possibility it yields absolutely nothing. And it's a 1 year, what, $14 billion contract. It's not a lot. But yeah, I mean, if you're real, I mean, they might even go into it next year and trade up and try and get one of the big name quarterbacks. But I feel
That's what
like,
I'm honestly hoping. Like I realistically would just like to see us, like I said, start fresh and just, even
I,
if we pick a rookie that's not, an Arch Manning or something, but still one of those top echelon guys in the college class that we're expecting, like it would just be nice to have that reset button almost. So.
what for the Steelers to have some success this year, where do you think Aaron Rodgers needs to place in terms of the QB ranking this year? Like, does he need to be a top 15 or does he need to be just top 20? Like where does he need to be, do you think, for us to have success? This would be nice because if I ask you, Mitch, obviously being an inside guy, and then also Brandon, like both of you can kind of give a little bit of takes. Obviously, one outside, one on the outside looking into.
Well, I would say like Aaron Rodgers, I don't know how much more of his career he has left after this. Like you said, Brendan, this is a 1 year contract. Like who knows if a team signs him after this? Like for him to have success to, if he wants to even play next year, to sign somewhere, God, he'd have to make the playoffs, I would assume, just to have that sort of extra boost to confidence for himself to want to continue since off the past 2 years with the Jets, that stigma around him right now. But I mean, just moving forward, making the playoffs and having that added bonus of, I still got it, I still made the playoffs. Like we are still competitive sort of mentality. And I think if other teams can see that next season, like he could still continue to play, I assume, but I,
I think it's got to be done after this, though. I just
that's what
don't
I'm
see it.
thinking, but I'm just assuming if he wants to continue playing, like that's what his mentality into it has to be going, like make the playoffs, make a good impression, don't have a losing season, and in the playoffs, even if we lose, like be very competitive. Like I think that's the goal for him this season. I
Sure.
don't think it's a Super Bowl winning season for him and his mentality,
Yeah,
but
you never know. I mean, the ayahuasca could be hitting in the locker room. Maybe he gets a few of the other guys on it. Who knows? They go on a little mental journey and they pull something out. But I don't
right.
know how big you guys are into fantasy, but do you know whereabouts ranking Russell Wilson was last year in fantasy amongst quarterbacks? Just take
Uh,
a guess.
before the season or after?
Well, he played 11 games, so just last season, where do you think he was?
I think he finished probably, I don't know, 15th best quarterback.
Mhm. Okay. Russell Wilson finishes the 24th best quarterback in fantasy. Granted, he only played 11 games. Aaron Rodgers actually finished 15th. Um,
Interesting.
That's
so this is, I mean, you're talking about a playoff football team
right.
with statistically probably not one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They were more than happy to let him walk.
Mhm.
Like you mentioned earlier, the consensus was we want to keep Justin Fields, if anything. They were happy to let him go. I don't think Rodgers needs to play out of his mind. I mean, he the 15th best quarterback in fantasy. And I know fantasy is always equate to real life, but he doesn't need to have a big performance with this defense that they have. I think still the Steelers do have one of the best defenses in the league, and I don't think it's close.
Right.
They can win football games. He just has to manage the game. It's going to come down to the O line.
Right. And I'm not saying that we have a bad team overall. It's just going into it, I'm expecting us to have, another 9-8 season and then lose in the first round to the Ravens or the Chiefs or whoever is the number 2 seed because we're most likely going to be the 7 seed at this point. Like I can just see it, and it's another year of what are we doing again? Like why are we
Mhm.
just setting this up for repeated
Yeah,
failure?
it's tough for me being the outsider because
Right.
it does feel like you guys feel like you're in the cycle. It's just
Hmm.
football, 500, we're done. Um, so I do get the fresh start, but I do feel like you have too much talent on this roster to completely tank it. I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah, I mean, from all the reports I've seen, is they're trying to load up and like make one more big push here. That seems to be the consensus. While TJ is still relatively young, you trade for DK, like that's a now move. That's not a later move. So like
Right.
clearly they're trying to do something. I just saw that they're trying to go for Pitts. So like if they go for Kyle Pitts, like I think we're sending a pretty clear message. Like we're going for it right now.
Trying to compete, yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, if we're I obviously want hope and success for this team and, want them to do well and, aim for the Super Bowl. But it's just that what have we been on now? Like 10-year run of
Yeah.
either
Since
just missing
2016.
or making the first round of the playoffs. So it's that repeated constant that is like making me nervous that it's going to be another one of those years. So even with our loaded talent that we have. So again, I'm hopeful that we can make something work and Aaron Rodgers is going to be a success here, but I just have that thought in the back of my mind. It's just going to be a little disappointing going into the season at about halfway through or towards the end of the season, basically. So
I
we'll
will
see.
say though, him with DK, I think I am excited about that. I mean,
Hmm.
when it was Devontae and him both in their obviously in their primes, like it was magical to watch. I think DK has a little bit of that. He's not as good of a route runner,
Right.
but he's just got the physical size, and I do think he can have some really good success. We'll see if Roman Wilson actually decides to play football, if he's just gonna be a water boy again. I don't know what
Right.
the hell I don't know what his deal is. But I think there is potential. I just think our ceiling is 10 wins. Like I absolutely think the
Right.
ceiling's 10 wins. I don't think we can match up with the Bills, Chiefs, or Ravens or Chargers, whoever the hell is going to be there in the first round. I just don't. I don't think we have enough to beat that. Or it seems like we at least change when we get to the playoffs. We go super conservative. We try to run the ball, lean on the defense. Everyone knows that, and then we just can't keep up like scoring wise with any of these good teams. Like we can't. It's really hard to win playoff games. I think when you only can like average 17 points in the last couple weeks. I don't think that's winning football right now.
Agreed.
I do think you have some hope. I do think one of your top scouts is from the Eagles, kind of understands building a team, starts from within, starts in the trenches. I think their draft showed that. I think it would have been easy to take the sexy pick. They did, they went trenches. It'll pay off. You have to trust the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did like our draft actually this year, in at least the last, 3-4 years. It's one of my more favorable drafts I think that the Steelers have had in a while. So I am hopeful in that case. So we'll see how it goes from there.
Yeah, going off that, I think them drafting the quarterback in the 5th round there is going to be at least beneficial, bringing Aaron Rodgers in so he can, I guess, somewhat learn from Aaron Rodgers, even though it's been noted Aaron Rodgers isn't much of a, you know, friendly face to rookies or incoming quarterbacks. But
Although Jordan Love did come out and say like he wasn't bad, like Aaron was not a bad dude to him. So like there's hope.
I guess I'm looking more of it from the media perspective, from what they've reported, I guess. But
Oh yeah.
I'm hopeful something good comes out of this, whether it's this season or future seasons. But like I said, we'll have to see. Obviously, it's preseason, way too early to tell. This is obviously fresh news and recent in our heads, so a lot of fresh takes. But yeah, I think we're have some other interesting moves here this offseason about some free agency winners that I think Brendan wanted to touch on. So I'll let you go ahead and lead this one here, Brendan. What do you think?
Yeah. So these are 3 teams that I looked at their free agency and I loved it. Every single thing about it. And uniquely, I think they're 3 teams that are in very different spots. I think the Bears are kind of middle of the pack. The Patriots were on the very low end of last season, one of the worst offenses in the league, and the Broncos were a playoff team. Competing. They were beating the Bills in their playoff game for a little bit. Obviously didn't end the way they wanted to, but if you look at the Bears, what was the biggest problem with the Chicago Bears last year?
Offensive line.
The offensive line, exactly. So what do? They trade for they signed the Atlanta. They get Drew Dalman. They get Joe Cooney in a trade with the Chiefs. They get Jonah Jackson in a trade with the Rams. I love that a lot. And then they go into the draft. They lose Keenan Allen. That's okay. You still have Roma Dunze, still one of the top young talents in the league, and you draft Luther Burden III. Why? People thought he was the number 1 receiver for most of the college season up until about the college football playoff.
Right.
On top of that, they get Colson Loveland. So they are showing, this is an offense that they want to build around Caleb. Caleb didn't have a good year last year. It's easy to point the finger and say it was the O-line's fault. Caleb needs to be better. He made some horrible decisions. In the Thanksgiving game against the Lions was horrific. That was just terrible decision-making all around. I think their head coach got fired after that. But, I think that was their biggest acquisition. Ben Johnson, probably the biggest name on the head coach market, was Ben Johnson, one of the best offensive minds in football. Was doing voodoo in Detroit with Jahmyr Gibbs, Montgomery, Amon-Ra, Jameson. Jared Goff looks like a superstar. The Rams didn't even want him. So I think this could be a great move for them. I absolutely love their free agency. I'm going to move to the Broncos. The Broncos, who were the playoff team last year, I think, let me find them here. They won the playoffs. They have their guy. They got their guy. Bo Nix. That pick caught people by surprise. I remember watching the draft last year. It was kind of a head scratcher. It was like Bo Nix wasn't really anything. It felt like he was in college football for half of his life. It just seemed like I always kept hearing Bo Nix's name. He was at Auburn, and then all of a sudden he's at Oregon. He's just dicing people up. It was great. So what did the Broncos do? They got Evan Ingram. Tight end was always a problem with them. They had Albert, they had Noah Fant. None of these guys really made it to the role of tight end at the pro level. But more importantly, on defense, their defense I loved last year. They had Benito, who could have been Defensive Player of the Year, but they actually had Pat Surtain. PS2 actually did win Defensive Player of the Year. Their defense is very, very good.
Right.
It's top heavy. They have some superstars in there, but now they're starting to fill out the rest of it. They get Dre Greenlaw from the 49ers. The 49ers known for pretty much being cycled around how they play defense. They get Justin Strand, and they get Talanoa Hufanga at a 3 or 45 million. That's a lot for a safety. He's a good safety. That secondary is going to be nasty. I think the Broncos did a fantastic job in free agency, and I think they are a scary football team, and not a lot of people are talking about them just because they kind of were in the Steelers position. They went to the playoffs, whoop-de-doo, and they ran into the freight train that was the Buffalo Bills, unfortunately for them. And then lastly, the Patriots. Let's find them here. The Patriots had a sneaky free agency, and then you start looking at the names, and you're like, holy hell, this team could be a unit if they can figure it out. They're also, all these teams, by the way, have a sophomore quarterback, and they're sticking with him, right? The Patriots having Drake May. Not a great year, but you also have to look at it. I mean, the Patriots were the second to worst receiving core in the league last year. They were abysmal. So what did they do? They get a superstar to start spearheading it in Stephon Diggs, $369 million. I'm not sure if you guys saw clips of him at training camp. It doesn't look like he had a knee injury last year. He looks great. He's cutting. He's making great plays. He's doing really well. And then they get Matt Collins, Mr. Barefoot himself. You know, he loves the cold weather, and he loves walking around with the dogs out in the cold weather. So they got Matt Collins. They got Austin Hooper. But on the defensive side of things is where they really shined. They signed Milton Williams. Milton Williams, who had a case for being the Super Bowl MVP a few months ago. He had 2 sacks, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery. The man was on a mission. He was gross. He was that play that stripped Mahomes when he was winding up, and then Jalen Carter came in and punched him in the chin.
Right.
It was a great play. They also get Marcus Epps. They get Jalen Hawkins. Alton Davis. This team is crazy, and to top it all off, they got a brand new edge rusher, Harold Landry. This team can make noise, genuinely, if they can get Drake May to start slinging the football. On top of that, they had a pretty decent O-line. I mean, they drafted Will Campbell with the number 4 pick, and you have that guy looking at cameras with 1,000 yards there, saying, "I will die for my quarterback." This is their franchise guy.
Right.
This is a great football player. And then they got Travion Henderson from Ohio State. This is a good football team. I think Drake May is going to tell how they're going to go. I don't think they're going to compete for the division anytime soon. I think the Bills are just nasty. This is definitely a great start.
Right. So sort of what you touched on there at the end, how whether the Patriots can compete with the Bills. I think it's important to say that all 3 of these teams have, that front runner in their division. The Lions, the Bills,
they have a daddy
and the
right
Chiefs.
now.
But I think it's a good start for these 3 teams here moving forward. Whether I don't know that this season coming up they'll be able to compete for a division title. Things happen. They could, but I don't see it like in the cards for all 3 of these teams. But they're, like you said, they're definitely on the right track. They made a lot of good moves this offseason, brought in a lot of depth, I would say, rather than like star key players that'll be starting every game at a lot of different positions. But I think a lot of these teams could use that depth going forward to, rotate guys, make sure they're fresh every week, and be able to compete with the heavy hitters in each of their divisions, because each of these divisions have very good teams. So these 3 teams need to be able to compete at that level. So
it shows good initiative from the NFL, because for a while the NFL's kind of way of thinking was, we're going to draft a quarterback if he doesn't perform well, we're going to have to move on.
Right.
Some teams are still in that old way of thinking. These guys, I mean, again, different situations. Bo Nix was fantastic last year. We're going to build around him. Drake May didn't really have too much. We're going to build around him. Caleb, that old line was abysmal. You could have thrown me on there. I probably would have gotten you the same results. They build around him. These guys are building an identity. I didn't even bring up that the Patriots got Mike Vrabel as their head coach, which is unbelievable. This guy led the Tennessee Titans to the 1 seed in 2022.
Right.
It's like highway robbery. They get rid of Jerron Mayo, probably didn't deserve it, but they had a clear upgrade with Mike Vrabel, who's a defensive-minded head coach and a good one. But you look on the other end of things of the Cleveland Browns, who really don't have an identity. Right? Deshaun Watson's terrible, one of the worst contracts of all time in sports. You get 2 quarterbacks, neither of them good. I mean, you get Dylan Bienville, you get Shedeur late. Hell, Joe Flacco might be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Meanwhile, they're trying to you have your superstar player saying he wants to play for a contender, and you crack open the vault, find a bunch of little shards of diamonds, and hand it to him. Here you go. We're not going to compete, but here's your bag. So I think it goes to show that the teams who want to win are making themselves known, and the teams who quite don't really know who they are also making themselves known.
Right. Any thoughts here, Dylan? What do you think on these 3 teams? What are their that you are impressed with?
No, I like all 3 of these. I think they are kind of all in a little bit different scenario, but it is kind of different. I think if I were to pick out of these 3, I'm actually most excited, I think, for the Broncos. I think they actually have a really good chance here to kind of upset the Chiefs. I mean, they played them really well last year. They should have beat them. It was a last-second field goal. Otherwise, they probably would have. So depending on how Bo Nix does here going forward, I actually really like their chances. I know everyone's kind of on the Chargers, but I think the AFC West is kind of wide open because the Chiefs – they had, 11 one-score games, and I think they won them all. That's very unlikely they're going to do that again. I think the Broncos were in a very similar situation, but on the other side of that, where I think they had like 9 games where they were in a one score and they lost. So I actually really like the Broncos scenario here. And if you remember last year, remember me and you, Mitch, we were both on the Broncos, so they were going to do all right. And Brian was on here going, no, they're going to win 4 games or something stupid.
Right.
But I do think they're on the way up. Sean Payton's a great coach, great offensive mind. And then they got, I think did they get Omarion? Is that the team that got Omarion Hampton too?
That was the Chargers. They got R.J. Harvey, who I think I might like better than Omarion Hampton.
Really?
He's the best pass catcher at the running back position in the draft class, and it's not close. He shades.
Where did he play at? Where was he? I've never heard of him.
I have no clue, but I know he's good.
Harvey, okay.
But, I mean, if you know Sean Payton, you know that boy loves his running backs, man. I mean,
oh my God, actually Reggie Bush and then Kamara, like he did wonderful things with them.
Yeah, and they're superstars. RJ Harvey played at UCF. Florida. Okay. He can handle the heat. Don't worry about him.
Yeah.
My biggest question mark for the Broncos is the wide receiver position. I didn't like it at all. Marvin Mims is okay. Who did they drafted? Somebody, Pat Bryant from Illinois. That doesn't move it for me. I'm a little worried on that end of things. I mean, they
brought in Evan Ingram, right?
They did bring in Evan Ingram, but it's a definite upgrade from what they had.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
They could still make a move. If I'm looking at the Broncos, if you're serious about competing, go out and get Keenan Allen. That guy's not doing anything right now. That's one of the best route runners. He's a veteran. He can play really well.
I really want to see if Courtland Sutton can stay healthy. I think a lot of his issues have been just health-wise. He can't play, it seems like, a full season. I think he could still be really good for them. I just don't know. Bears, I think the Bears, honestly, I think it all rides on Caleb Williams. Like, the hype was so crazy last year, and he kind of fell through, but obviously it wasn't entirely his fault. But now he's got literally no excuses. I mean, he's got a new coach, an offensive guru. They loaded up even more with him. if he has another year where he's not the greatest, I wonder what we'll kind of start to say about him. That's kind of my biggest thing, because I think Drake May is going to be fine. I think the way the Patriots are set up, they'll be fine. I think they'll play a little bit more safe. But the Bears, I'm a little worried about that, because if Caleb has another season where he's kind of mid with all the hype they had behind him, I think Bears fans are going to start getting a little bit worried, because like he was brought in to be the next guy, like the savior, and the Bears just haven't had it, and they need someone like that, or otherwise I don't think this franchise is really going to move forward the way they want it to.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to touch on with Caleb Williams there, I think his decision making at certain points is just sort of lackluster, I guess. Like you could say, like last season, obviously, there were issues with the O-line. They played a pretty hard-hitting, heavy schedule last year against some pretty good teams. So for a
Top
freshman
division too,
quarterback,
NFC North's loaded.
right? But even freshman quarterback coming in, most of the time you don't see them have super great success their first years. Obviously, there's exceptions, but freshman quarterbacks tend to struggle. So I'm interested to see like what you said, how he does his sophomore year, how he reacts to his offensive line, potentially giving better coverage, and some of the weapons that they brought in and are willing to work with and everything. How his decision making basically throughout the whole game works, whether he just simply relies on offensive coordinator and head coach sort of thing, or if he sort of takes a little bit of a this is my team mentality, like I'm going to be the leader here and lead them to success. So I'm interested to see how they move forward here and go in that tough division, basically. So they have a lot of tough games coming up. So it'll be a good test for them to see what they can do, basically.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the decision making maybe it does have some part to do with uh, early in the year. I mean, it was like first couple games when he got sacked like 15 times.
Right. It definitely has an
That
impact on any
and
quarterback. I mean, let alone a freshman coming in and
getting
not
hit in the
knowing.
NFL and getting hit at USC, completely different experiences.
Right.
I think it scared him a little bit. His accuracy was a little off at times. His game management was definitely questionable at certain times. He does have three veteran linemen coming in. Hopefully, they can calm him down, keep him grounded. Maybe Ben Johnson. Uh, Hopefully, they can cook something up, man. I think this is a big year for him. I think it's a big year for DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift is under a lot of pressure. He left the Eagles, made way for Saquon, who just had one of the greatest running back seasons of all time, and now people are pointing the finger at DeAndre Swift because he was even close to that. It's all gonna ride on them.
Right.
They got you the utensils, now you got to use them.
So,
Yeah,
so I
no.
wanted to pose this question to both of you, I guess. Like, what does a successful season look like for all three of these teams here? Like, obviously, playoffs and Super Bowl are, the expectations, but like realistically, what are we expecting from these three teams?
I think all three are going to go to the playoffs. I do think that. I mean, the Patriots probably have the hardest path, but I do think they can make it. I think kind of the top dogs in the AFC are kind of understood, but I think every year those wild card spots are really wide open a lot of the times. And I think the Patriots, with the offseason they had, they definitely have a chance. And I think Drake May can probably get them there. I think the Bears, though, I think if they get like a really, they get in first round and get like an embarrassing loss, I think they have the most to lose out of these three. Just because of Caleb and just what they put around them between last year, what they added, and then this year. If they have another really disappointing season, and I'm talking like they don't make it at least second round of playoffs, I think that's the most disappointing. No one really expected the Broncos last year. They kind of just got there, and everyone's like, oh, that's really cool. I think the Patriots have a similar path this year where, like, people they're a little hype on them, but if they make it, that's just like, oh, good for you. Broncos, I just think I don't think people really think they're going to do much better this year. So I just don't think they have that much to lose, really, especially being in the AFC West. I think they get a little bit of slack more so. anytime you're with the Chiefs, like you get a little bit out of that. You're like, oh no, you played with the Chiefs, and now the Chargers have all this hype for no reason really. They've yet to prove anything, but yeah, I think the Bears have the most to lose here.
I agree. I mean, I don't think the Patriots are going to the playoffs this year. I think their path is a little too difficult. I mean, you have 2 free losses with the Bills. This team's not going to beat the Buffalo Bills. I'm sorry. They just can't keep up with that firepower. The Broncos, probably not going to happen. This football team could win the division. They could. It came down to seconds last year. They were close. I mean, the Chiefs are a good football team, but I think the Chiefs lost more than they gained for sure. The only thing with the Chiefs is I think they're going to come out with something to prove this year. I mean, they just got embarrassed in front of the nation.
Yeah.
Their whole thing this season is going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder. I think the Bears make the playoffs. This is a tough division. It's only gotten harder. I do think the Lions lost a lot. I mean, they lost both their coordinators. Who knows who the Lions are going to be? The Vikings have a rookie quarterback starting this year. The kid hasn't seen NFL action yet.
I mean, the Packers are good in this division anyway, as well,
Yeah.
let alone the Lions. So I mean,
think the Bears and Vikings are just going to kind of switch out from last year. I just think the Vikings are going to be that last place team. They're kind of hyped up, but they just don't. Similar situation, the quarterback, I just don't think he's ready yet. He's a young guy, and I think the Bears will probably – I don't think they'll win 14 games, but I think they'll kind of flip-flop. It'll be those 3 and then probably Vikings at the bottom this year, unless JJ just goes crazy. But, his last year is quote-unquote best year in college. He handed the ball off more times than he did anything else. So, he's going to be expected to throw the ball a lot, and we've never really seen that from JJ. So, that interests me a lot. I really want to see how JJ does when he's the guy that's supposed to throw the ball, 20, 30 times when he's normally used to doing it, maybe 10 to 15 times in Michigan. So that's a big change for a guy to come up in the NFL who is traditionally more of a conservative guy. And now you're a gunslinger. I'm very interested to see how that pans out for him.
I agree with that, but if you're going to throw a guy into that situation, there's no team I'd like best than the Minnesota Vikings with Addison and Jettas. And
Absolutely. And Kevin O'Connell is a great coach.
Especially with new quarterbacks.
Yeah.
New quarterbacks, so we'll see. It's going to be a big adjustment for him. I hope he does well.
right. Well, speaking on how we think teams are going to do this year, we are going to move into our way too early Super Bowl predictions. And I think we have some interesting matchups here. But we'll go ahead and let Dylan speak first on his matchup and why he thinks those teams will get there and a potential winner pick of those 2 teams. So, Dylan, let's see your first pick here. We got the Bills and Buccaneers.
Let's go. Yeah, so I'll tell you what, in the AFC, I was really only down to 2 teams. I think the Chiefs are just done. I think this is not their year. I think it's between the Bills and Ravens. It's finally time for one of them to break through. I know people have sleeper picks, the Chargers, the Broncos, maybe, I don't know, someone will say fucking Texans. I don't know. I think it just comes down to those 2. One of those 2, I think, will finally kind of beat up on the big dog. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think it's going to be the Bills because they're just better in the playoffs. Josh Allen, every time, it just seems to do really well in the playoffs compared to we just don't know. Lamar sometimes does really well, but seems like the farther he gets, the worse he does. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe they'll lean on Derrick Henry more, but they just seem to always be like, all right, Lamar, it's your time, go show off. And he just doesn't. So I just feel more confident in the Bills. So I'm going to go with the Bills on the AFC side. NFC, I honestly think last year they were closer than people think. I think the Bucs can make a lot of noise. They're in a really bad division, so why not just kind of run with it? You were on this last year a little bit talking about the Bucs because I was really big on the Saints. Saints sucked. That was a terrible pick. But I think the Bucs, you got an easy ride. We saw it with the Patriots for years. If you've got an easy division, it just kind of gets you to the playoffs. And then from there, kind of run the table. I mean, if you kind of look at it, the Eagles were good, but they really hit their stride in the playoffs. I think the way Baker's playing, he's getting better every year, and I'm very excited. I don't remember the receiver they got, but I'm pretty sure they got a receiver this year in the
They
draft.
did. It was, I think it was Ibuka, wasn't it?
Yeah, they got a Mecca, right? They got a yeah. That really excites me. I think Baker's just a baller. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Bucks. I don't think the Eagles are going to repeat. Commanders, I know people are going to pick them. I just don't know. Second year, I think they'll figure some stuff out with Jaden. He'll probably take a little pullback, similar to we saw like CJ Stroud. So yeah, I'm going to go Bucks. I don't think people talk about them enough. Their defense is always solid. If Baker can play a consistent 17 games, which I think he can, I think they'll be really nice for playoffs. So I'm going to go Bucks. Bucks Bills, baby.
So
Put the bet in now.
if you had to pick a winner between these two, who would you go for?
Give me Bills.
Bills. All right.
I don't mind this pick at all, actually. I mean, the Bucks are good. I think, you had a lot of health problems, especially in your wide receiver room. I think Evans missed time. And then there was that picture of Chris Godwin's leg pointing the wrong way.
Yep.
You had health issues, so what do? You get one of the best receivers in the draft, kind of alleviate that problem. I do think Baker's good. I think Baker does choke sometimes in big moments.
Right.
Gets a little out of hand, a little wild.
I think it was 2 years ago, they played the Lions, and they had the football, needed to drive down the field. And in my head, I was like, he's going to do something stupid and throw it down the middle of the field, and it's going to get picked off. Two
Yep,
plays
which is
later,
exactly what he did. Yep.
I think I think you kind of hit on it. He gets in his head. He wants to be the superstar. He wants to make the big play. Sometimes you got to let the dogs eat. I mean, you have Bucky Irvin's great. He was great for you last year. Mike Evans, Hall of Fame wide receiver.
Right.
Throw it up. Let them make a play. I mean, what did the Eagles do when they got it was like fourth and long, and they needed to get it? What did they do? They threw it up to one of their dogs. Let A.J. Brown make the play. I think if they can do that, they could be a scary team. And they seem to be the Eagles' kryptonite. I mean, if they see the Eagles in the NFC Championship, Lord knows, the Eagles can't get past them.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say that last season on the podcast here, I was a very big proponent of the Buccaneers. I loved to support them. I liked the style of play they had. Like I loved supporting Baker Mayfield and, the
Rashad
team they
White.
built around them. So I like the pick here. It's just sort of like you said, I don't know if Baker can step up in those big games and perform at his best, like during the offseason or during the season itself. I mean, we've seen him have really high highs and really low lows at certain games. So it almost depends what Baker Mayfield shows up for any of those playoff games. Like you said, they're in a relatively easy division, so expected, division winner. But where can they go from there? Sort of decision is, I think, in a lot of people's minds, like, yeah, they're probably going to be, top 4 seed, but can they win any of those big games? They might win, the 4 or 5 seed matchup or something like that, whatever they have. But can they win against the number 1 seed, or can they win against the number 2 seed, or whatever it might be? Like, I'm not sure we're there with Baker. He's a fun player to watch and fun to cheer on and everything, and that team as well. Like a lot of young talent, a lot of exciting talent, but whether they can be cohesive enough, I think, is the issue for them. So we'll see. I'm hopeful for them again. Like I said, I love cheering them on, and supporting them throughout their progress. But
Yeah.
we'll see how they do. And like you said, the Bills are just one of those top AFC teams that are always going to be in conversation, at least in the near future, for is it going to be the Chiefs, Bills, or Ravens for who's going to make it to the Super Bowl? So I think it's going to be one of those 3 teams again. But yeah, Bills are a good choice here. So, but we'll go ahead and move on to Brendan's picks here. We got
Hey.
Bills and Eagles. So, Brendan, if you want to go ahead and touch on this a little bit.
Yeah, I think you have. I think respectfully are both the best teams in their respective conferences. The Eagles are. They are. I think it's important to understand that the Eagles aren't so much big on talent as they are your culture. Their culture is we can't be great without the greatness of others. People buy into that. I think releasing C.J. Gardner-Johnson was a big part of that. So they get, Makuba in the second round. They get one of the most versatile defensive players in the first round. They traded up one spot for him. One of the most insane things I've ever seen. Traded up one spot at the back end of the first round to get Jahad Campbell, who is an unbelievable football player. He's going to fill in nicely for Nakobe Dean, who's going to miss the start of the season. They re-signed Goddard. They have virtually no holes. I heard that their offensive line minicamp is insane because Lane Johnson is currently listed as the number 2 on the depth chart for their right tackle spot. So I just think Stallman's one of the best offensive line coaches in history. They just reload and they just keep going. The only thing that it can be their downfall is their health and their schedule. Because if they get unhealthy with that schedule, it could get ugly fast. And in that division, I think the Commanders are going to waste no time in taking advantage of that. I think the Commanders are a good football team. I think they're a little overrated this year. I think they kind of busted their load a little too hard last year. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship, and unfortunately, the Eagles showed them they weren't quite supposed to be there yet. The Eagles need to stay healthy. And on the Bills side of the thing, we already hit pretty hard on this. The Bills are a good football team.
Right.
Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the league. I don't care. I didn't like what I saw from Mahomes last year. I don't care if Raji Rice got hurt. I don't care if Travis Kelce's aging. I don't care if their O-line kind of crumbled. I don't care. Josh Allen is he's an alien. It's insane. He's huge. He's got a rocket arm. He looks great in shorts. And he runs people over when he needs to get mobile. He can get the football in tight windows. It's a scary football team. I think they have a good shot at going undefeated. But I do think the Eagles prevail in the Super Bowl strictly off of experience. But on the other side of the things, I think the Bills do finally get theirs against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game because of that experience. They're not losing this time. I think that AFC Championship game will be played in the snow in Buffalo under the lights with the drunkest human beings on planet Earth. And I think the Bills are going to get it done. But I do think the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl again. I think they go back to back.
So I know we touched on the Bills already and how they're always going to be in contention with the Chiefs and the Ravens, at least in the near future. But the Eagles, I think they do have a good team and everything. I don't know if they can go back to back. It's going to be those couple NFC teams that I think are always going to be the division leaders, I think, here in the near future that are going to be like, oh, is it going to be the Lions, the Bucks, the Eagles? I guess I don't even know. The Rams or 49ers in the West. Like, who's going to be that like top NFC team? Because I think we've seen in the recent history, like the AFC, it's one of those 3 teams.
If I
Chiefs,
had to
Bills, or
predict,
Ravens. But the NFC, it's usually whoever's the 1 or 2 seed usually has the best chance.
yeah,
So I think if we can see the Eagles secure that 1 or 2 seed moving into the playoffs, sure. I think they have a really good shot, but like you said, they have some sort of or somewhat of a tougher division. Like you said, the Commanders are somewhat overrated. I think the hype around them as well is coming in a little bit too heavy this season. So I think they are a little bit overrated as well. Not that they're a bad team, but um, I think if the Eagles can stay top of the whole NFC conference there, I think they have a really good shot, but we'll just see how they can compete throughout the season. Because if they slip up just a little bit, I think that in the NFC leads to failure in the Super Bowl, basically.
yeah, I agree. I think what was the biggest component in them winning this past season was the path to the Super Bowl went through Philadelphia. They didn't have to go to Detroit. Washington had to go to Philadelphia. That they are a good football team, maybe the best in the world when they're playing in the league.
Right.
If I had to make a guess on what I think the NFC Championship game is going to be, I would say it's going to be the Rams and the Eagles at the link. The Rams could have beaten them. They probably should have.
Yeah, that was my second pick. Yeah, if I didn't pick the Bucks, it'd be the Rams for sure.
But yeah, I think it's going to be the Rams. If I'm wrong, send me to God. But I think it's going to be the Rams and the Eagles. I think it's going to be the Bills and the Chiefs, and I think they're both going to be very good football games. But I think this is going to be the outcome.
So if you had to pick a winner between these two, you said the Eagles, right?
The Philadelphia Eagles. I
Back to
just
back.
think that it comes down. I don't think the Bills have the strongest receiving core.
No.
I think Josh Allen has to do way too much. It's a long road. It's 20-plus games to get there. Josh Allen can't do it all on his own. If something happens, God forbid, it could get ugly.
And I'm worried about James Cook. He is not. He said he's not
holding
coming back.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had his best season now, and then obviously that took a little bit off for Josh Allen. So if he doesn't come back, I'm genuinely worried because without a run game, it's like the first 2 years Josh Allen where he had to do everything, and it doesn't bode well.
Josh Allen sitting there thinking, I can be the run game too. I'll just do everything.
Well, for myself, I sort of went a little bit obscure here from you two at least. I know we sort of touched on it a little bit, but I think it's going to be the Ravens and Rams in the Super Bowl. Sort of how we said the AFC, it's always going to be the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, at least for the near future. One of those three teams probably making it to the Super Bowl. And I think this is the year Lamar is, and the Ravens are really going to make that step going forward and say, like, this is our year. This is the team that's going to do it. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson are a deadly duo. I had my doubts about Derrick Henry last year. Not ashamed to admit I was wrong, but I think they're just going to repeat or do better than they did last year. The Ravens, I think, made some good offseason signings to fill a lot of that depth that they needed. So I could see them making that extra push. I don't think the Chiefs are as strong as they were last year or previous years before, actually. So I think the Chiefs could be not easily beaten, but are going to be a beatable team in the playoffs if they make it. And even if the Ravens do play the Bills in, the AFC Championship game, for example, I think I might give the slight edge to the Ravens. I think they have a tougher overall conference where they're going to be more available and experienced with tougher competition week to week. So they're going to be coming in, yeah, it's the Bills, but we've also played, you know, the Bengals twice a year who are either really good or what we saw last season, somewhat hit or miss. The Browns could be a wild card team this year. The Steelers, who knows what they're going to do with Rodgers this year. So I think their division, I think is going to be a little bit more proven why they're going to be the AFC Championship this year and the winners. And like we said, the Rams, I mean, they have a lot of good talent. They just signed Matt Stafford to a 2-year contract, but he's getting like 90% of that contract in his first year. So I have to imagine this is the year they're doing it with him, and they're making that big push. They got some offseason signings to help with their defense where they lacked a little bit last year. And they have a lot of really good offensive receiving talent and running back talent as well. So I could really see the Rams making a big push this year. Like this is their, big last push before almost resetting essentially to find out what's coming in their future. So I could see the Rams and Ravens making it to the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things that kind of need to go right. Lamar needs to play football. I think he had a good game against Buffalo. Unfortunately, God, who's the tight end for the Ravens? Mark Andrews dropped the football on the 2-point. Josh Allen had a minute and a half, which is, I mean, he's Superman. He would have won the game, but who knows what happens? Maybe he throws a pick. Maybe he has a stroke and he fumbles the football on the way down. You never know. I mean, the Ravens were kind of there, and that was in Buffalo. I mean, that was a good game. The Ravens seem to get better every year. I do like they re-signed Ronnie Stanley. Matabike gets better every year. Penn State or Rodolfo Owe gets better every year. They're a really, really good football team. And an underrated draft pick that they had, Malachi Starks, I think is the best secondary player in that draft. He's unbelievable. He's a
Right.
ball hawk. He's good in man. He can help on the run. And the Ravens, for the first half of that year, could not stop a ball in the air. They couldn't do it. It was impossible. Kyle Hamilton was out there with a cane trying to swat at it. Um, I think the Ravens, and then I mean the Rams. They have Devontae Adams as their wide receiver too. This team is nasty. If Kyron Williams, the human fumble, can get it together, uh,
Mhm.
the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I mean, even let me see here. I mean,
Yeah.
Kyron Williams, of course, really good player and everything. Like you said, had some woes and everything last year, but I mean, they have some depth at least. I mean, they have Blake Corum coming up and wide receiver talent. They have Puka, Devontae Adams, Tutu Atwell is still,
Hey, shout out Tutu, baby. Let's
yeah,
go.
I mean, he's a pretty decent receiver. I mean, they have some depth there as well. Like, I
Yeah, we
mean,
just
I
got to
think I mean, Tyler Higbee, he's a little older, but still, like, he's a very reliable tight end. Like, offensively, I think the Rams are pretty set. I think it was that defensive issue last year, and I think they made some pretty decent free agency signings last year that helped them out,
Mm-hmm.
or this offseason rather than last year. But
Oh, sure.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams make a very deep run. And like I said, they're heavy loading Matt Stafford's contract this year, so this is like, although it's a 2-year contract, like a very we need you to win this year type contract. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's these two teams, and I think this would honestly be a very fun Super Bowl to watch. So
Yeah, no, I agree with that. If I didn't pick the Bucks, it was going to be the Rams. I think that's a good pick. And I think Eagles Rams, like those are two. I just checked actually right now with the betting. You can get the Bucks and Rams, both of them at great odds right now to win the Super Bowl. Even the Eagles, I think, are not bad odds. But yeah, if you are interested in any of those NFC teams, you can get some great odds right now. Baltimore Ravens are number one, so you don't get very good odds for them, but they're the favorite right now. So.
yeah,
Not an original pick, buddy. Number one. You picked the
I
number
know,
one
but I
team.
mean, are the Bills really an original pick either? Come on.
I
No,
thought
no,
this
they're
was
number
about
two.
hot takes here. What's going on?
Yeah, yeah, that's number two. Yeah, Bills are number two. Surprisingly, Eagles are number four.
Whoa,
Yeah, so right now it's Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, Eagles, Lions, and Bengals. That's the top six.
Bengals, really?
Yes, I know Cincinnati. That's I'm kind of impressed
I
myself there.
mean, Trey Hendrickson isn't going to play for the Cincinnati Bengals this year without a new contract. I'm not exactly sure who's rushing the quarterback because it's not going to be Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson might be an Eagle. I mean, I think the Eagles are
Yeah, well, and
top
the way
betting odds for getting that.
their rookies just decided he's not going to sign either. Who they hopefully were, deciding that their other edge, the Texas A&M guy or whatever, I think.
Hmm.
Oh, by the way, Liv wanted me to tell you. Liv, my fiance, she said that she thinks it's going to be the Lions Chargers. So that's her pick for Super Bowl.
Terrible pick.
I'm a
Yeah,
big Justin Herbert guy. I would love to see Justin Herbert take that step forward and become one of the elites. It's not going to be this year.
No, I was gonna say I don't think it's gonna be this season. It
They
would
still
be
have Quentin
interesting to
Johnson
see,
out there
but
trying running routes. They are not going to win.
for a couple games though, he did really well. I remember that, like mid-season, it was like weeks 4, 5, and 6. He started to like catch a couple, and I was like, "Oh, he's back!" And then he fell flat on his face.
You say sometimes a blind bird finds a worm. It's
Uh,
anything's possible.
who do you think has the worst odds right now? I'm checking the odds right now for Super Bowl right now. Who do you think's 32? Take a guess. Both of you, take a guess.
The
I,
Cleveland Browns.
ooh, let me think.
Okay.
Gosh, I
Might be
want to say the
close now that
Jets
I'm thinking
almost.
about it.
Okay, so you're going Jets, you're going Browns. The
Yeah.
Browns are 31, Jets are 30.
Oh,
The
Is it the Jags?
New
Oh,
Orleans
it's the
Saints
Saints.
are
oh yeah, duh.
32.
Showtime. Listen. Tyler Show drafted way too high. It's going to be a disaster.
Right.
Yeah, they're plus 4,000. So their odds are, even the Cleveland Browns are plus 3,000. So it's a whole nother 1,000 odds that they
Yeah.
drop off.
I have to imagine that's pretty accurate. Like they are probably, I don't think they're tanking on purpose, but they're
Yeah, no, the bottom
expecting
five
to get
are.
a quarterback
It
in the
was
next
it was
quarterback heavy draft.
unfortunate that their quarterback decided to retire after the draft. That was
Right.
super unfortunate. We
Honestly,
can't
the
predict that.
bottom 10 teams here are all pretty respectable. Dolphins, Jaguars, Colts, Panthers, Raiders, Titans, Giants, Jets, Browns, Saints. The bottom 10 seems about right, honestly.
Right.
Yeah. Surprisingly, I think the Bears are really low. They're like 22nd for teams that we kind of talked about as maybe making a little bit of noise this year. They're super low. I found them kind of surprisingly low. Right beside the Bucks, so shout out to Bucks.
Right. Super Bowl team.
Hell yeah, dude! I can make crazy. They're plus 2,700, dude.
Yeah, that'd be good money. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up here at the School of Hot Takes. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will be back later with more content. See you later.